Yeah.
What the hell is the point to go into a fully fledged offseason and then give up on your coach 17 games in?
Let's start with the Sacramento Kings, who I'm sorry that I have to do this because I'm already like public enemy #1 of Kings Twitter for pointing out that they lost to a Sixers team without all 5 starters from last year.
Yeah. You took one on the chin there.
Oh, it was worth it. It was absolutely worth it because you lost to a Sixers team without all 5 starters. So yeah, I think that speaks to the level of dysfunction going on in Sacramento right now. Obviously, the Kings fired Luke Walton on Sunday. Mort, you and I have been Luke Walton critics for a while now. I think it's safe to say we were wondering.
Basically, since he's got hired, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we were wondering why he had kept his job as long as he did. And Sam Amick of The Athletic, who is pretty plugged into the Kings camp, last year was reporting it was mostly a financial decision. He had multiple years left on his contract at that point. I believe now he only has 1 more year left after this one. So they do have to swallow some money, but not as much as they would have had they fired him last year. What did you think of the decision to fire Luke Walton? And then do you think Alvin Gentry, their interim head coach, is going to be able to turn this thing around and turn this team into a playoff team?
Well, I think when you can fire a coach 17 games into the year, instead of doing it in the offseason where you can then start a thorough search, makes all the sense in the world. Like, come on. No, this is just another bit of the Kings, right? Where you just go Kangs. I mean,
yeah.
What the hell is the point to go into a fully fledged offseason and then give up on your coach 17 games in? Like, again, I don't disagree that this was the right decision. I disagree with the timing. You should have done this at the end of last season. Like, you shouldn't have gone into the 2021-2022 season with him at the helm at all. And now you're mucking things up. You're going to go, oh, okay, so 17 games in, now we need to get Alvin Gentry in. He's going to get a shot. Well, what if he doesn't work out? Then they need to go out and find someone else. And like at that point, like De'Aaron Fox is going to be on his 103rd head coach, within 3 years of 5 years of his career. Like, I will say this: I trust that Gentry is going to amp up the offense because he loves offense. Like, let's just get that out of the way first and foremost. Alvin Gentry is an offensive player's dream coach. I mean, he loves to run, he loves to get shots up, he loves to get buckets close to the basket. Like, theoretically, this should be the coach that De'Aaron Fox over the past couple of years has dreamed of playing under. So we'll see what happens. And if he somehow turns this team around, good. It doesn't, however, remove the larger issue at hand. Like, let's just get into it. Ownership is a problem. Ownership meddles. I mean, 1, 2, 3, Nick Rucks. We all know it. It's dumb, and it's like, so I'm sitting here and I understand the Kings fans are trying to find the positives in firing Luke Walton and going, oh yeah, we can change our fortunes a little bit. But I'm also very much aware that all of those Kings fans in the back of their minds are going, but to what end though? Like, given the ownership, it's even if they find a good coach, there's no guaranteeing that that coach sticks around. Look at Mike Malone, who was there and who got unfairly fired for what it was even a decent start, and it was because Boogie was sick, and like there were so many dumb layers to it. Like, why should Kings fans feel at all any type of what's the word I'm looking for here, like optimism, when you have an ownership like that who just does not look at the situation with a nuanced view and just makes what feels like on the go decisions every single week? You
shouldn't. You have no reason to feel confident in this team. I mean, it's similar to what we were saying about Phoenix for a long time. Like, it just, there is a trickle down effect, and if you can't trust the ownership group or the owner, if it's just one person, if you can't trust that person to be hands off and defer to his basketball decision makers, you're probably going to have a bad time. It's just as simple as that. So I think going back to Walton for a second, one of the things that drove both of us batty about him is that De'Aaron Fox is one of the quickest, most athletic point guards in the league. His first year under Luke Walton, the Kings were 20th in pace. They got up to 10th last season. So turns out having a really athletic point guard should run faster. And they started doing more 3-guard lineups with, Hield, Fox, and Halliburton, which had some success. So they were showing signs of progress at some point. But at the same time, they finished with an identical 31-41 record each of the last 2 seasons. They haven't posted a winning record since the 2005-2006 season, which is coincidentally the last time they made the playoffs. So this is a 15-year playoff drought. And I'm going Sam Amick in this article, kind of the Wave 2-esque look of like what's next for the Kings after Luke Walton's firing. He said the Kings went into this season hell-bent on breaking that drought. So to me, it's like a question of realistic expectations because, you've got Fox and Halliburton, both of whom I know we'll get to Fox in a second, but, Fox last year was an all-star caliber player. Halliburton was one of the best rookies in the league. Harrison Barnes is having a career year. Rashawn Holmes remains one of the most underrated centers in the league. Like, those 4 guys are good. However, their starting 3 spot has gone 12 starts to Maurice Harkless and 5 starts to Chimezie Metu. Like, neither one of those guys belongs in an NBA starting lineup for a team that is hoping to make the postseason. And so that, this is where the Davion Mitchell pick was just so questionable unless they had another plan. Like, one of these other guards was going to get moved this offseason because, why do you need a 4th guard when you don't have 3s at all? You just don't have forwards.
Right.
So this is where okay, sure, maybe Alvin Gentry will get the offense to be more efficient. It's already 14th in the NBA, so that wasn't defense is the bigger problem for them rather than offense. And again, not having wings is probably contributing to that to a large extent. So I don't know that changing coaches is going to fix the root issues here plaguing the Kings.
No, I don't think so either. I will say you can make up a lot of ground by being an elite offensive team, even if your defense struggles. And given that it's the Western Conference, I'm just open to the idea that they could sneak in if they become an elite offensive squad. Like, that's my logic behind it. That said, I mean, what are they right now? Like 6 and 12. Yeah. That's rough. And you still have to figure out a new system on the run because Gentry's going to make some changes and hopefully they're going to pay off, but it won't be necessarily immediately. There are still guys trying to figure out their spot. Like you just said, like positionally, this team is not structured the way it should be. I even wrote an article on Forbes, I think a couple months ago or 1 month ago, where I basically took this issue up and said, you know what, it's time for the Kings to actually build a roster that has some structure to it. Because they haven't for years and years and years. And I think this all boils down to this conversation that we're about to have, you and I, which is, what's the play? Should the Kings continue going for the playoffs or should they just rebuild? Now, I've heard people say that, oh, the fan base can't tolerate any more losing. The fan base wants immediate results. Like, I'm sorry, but I think that's a load of BS. I think that is just diminishing what the Sacramento Kings fan base is. I think you're speaking down to them because they are smart people. They know full well that even if you sneak into the playoffs via some sort of play-in tournament win, that is not necessarily a sign of sustainability. Right. That roster is still messed up. The organizational structure is still messed up. It might actually behoove you to start over once again and just like break everything into rubble and start all over. And then you have those people saying, well, do Kings fans have the patience for it? Yeah, I just think Kings fans want to see this done right. If that means a 5-year process where you're all aligned and you go, okay, look, we know we've messed up, but we're starting over. We're doing this thing the right way. Vivek's influence is gone. we've made an agreement. Like, this is Monty McNair, or maybe someone else. Like, maybe you switch everything around. Like, maybe it's you also hire a brand new managerial team with the caveat that, look, Vivek, hands off. Just shut the F up and leave those people alone to do their jobs. Then I think Kings fans would be super hyped. Just go into it like, okay, let's see what's up. Let's see what that happens. As long as there's a plan. Because right now, can you tell me what their plan is outside of, we want to make the playoffs because we haven't been there for 15 years?
Right.
What's the plan?
No, I can't. And I mean, I'll speak just from the Sixers process perspective of, like, that's what was so appealing to Sam Hinkie. Like, he came in and he had a very clear long-term plan, and it wasn't just tank for draft picks. Like, he, got a bunch of, he churned through guys on 10-day contracts or like undrafted free agents. He's, acquiring like JaVale McGee for a pick, or, like taking on bad salaries for extra picks. Like, he was strategic about the way he designed that roster. He wasn't wasting time like what Houston's doing with the Daniel Tice or Eric Gordon or anything like that. It was just all in on young guys. Let's churn through these guys, and maybe we find a Robert Covington or a TJ McConnell who have some sticking power. The Kings, it's just not, as you said, it's not clear what the long-term plan is or how they plan. Like, how do you plan to get the 3 that you're missing right now? You, like, you're not going to get this guy. You're not going to get a star wing in free agency. No one is actively choosing the Sacramento Kings over another team that's offering an equal payday. So you can overpay for someone, but, like John Hollinger of The Athletic just put out a list of the top 25 free agents next year. It gets super bleak very quickly. So, the free agent market is probably not a realistic option if you're going the draft route, unless you're drafting an older guy like a Chris Duarte who's ready to come in and make an impact right away. He might be a couple years away from really hitting his stride. So is that aligned with especially the ages of Holmes and Barnes? Like, it's clear that they don't have a long-term 5-year plan of, here is how not only do we get back to the playoffs, but we're rebuilding, we get back to the playoffs, then we turn into a contender. It's just, I mean, I have no idea what the long-term vision is. So it's a fair question, Mort. And I think the
goal shouldn't be just playoffs. I mean, let's just be honest here. I am so tired of just hearing that, like, as the primary goal. Just let's get into the playoffs. Like, what? As an 8 seed that's going to be bounced in 4 games? Are you satisfied going through like a 5-year period of being that team that gets bounced that way? No, like, if you set your heights to just making the playoffs, you're coming in with no ambition whatsoever. I'm not saying, hey, it's championship or bust every single year. No. But I am saying that if you are serious, regardless of where you are in your rebuilding plan or wherever you are in that stage, you have to look ahead and go, how do we take it from point A to point B and point B to point C to the point where we can become contenders for the championship? Because at the end of the day, that's what you're all fighting for. And the Kings just seem to be completely closed off to that, just going, we'll settle. Like, it's fine. It's fine. Play in tournament, sure. Win. Because we're frustrated and we're desperate. Like, how many desperate guys do you know who gets a date?
Right. So let's go into the big question for the Kings that Sam brought up. The sub headline was, quote, the roster dilemma. And then the first paragraph was, is De'Aaron Fox still the right guy to build around? It's not looking that way at the moment. Fox has taken a step backward. He averaged 25.2 points per game on 47.7% shooting last year. He's down to 19.9, 42.1 this year, shooting a career low 24.4 from 3-point range. Assists are down the lowest it's been since his rookie year. Rebounds as well. So Amick then added, if things don't improve anytime soon, with the Kings potentially falling even further out of playoff contention along the way, it'll be interesting to see the ripple effect on the roster by the time the Feb 10 trade deadline rolls around. So what do you make of all of that, Mort? Do you think, all offseason, the Kings had been mentioned as one of the possible Ben Simmons suitors, but they had said De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton are off limits. Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report confirmed that this week after the Walton firing. He said both of those guys, the Kings still have both of those guys off limits. Do you think the Fox-Halliburton backcourt is the answer long-term, or are they going to have to consider moving off of one of those guys at some point?
I mean, it could. It could be the future, but not as the primary thing. I mean, the thing is, it's really about what kind of players you have around those guys. Like, if you hit home on a draft pick of some superstar who comes in, thus turning Fox and Halliburton into secondary and tertiary options, that's fine. It's really about what kind of role you're playing. If De'Aaron Fox is your best player and you're relying on him to be, you know, your franchise guy, yeah, I mean, I could see how there's a ceiling to what you want to achieve. I'm not saying that he's not going to be one of the great point guards in this league. I think, if anything, it's ridiculous to put so much emphasis on 18 games this year compared to what he did last year and the year before. I mean, I heavily lean towards Fox being a good player compared to what he is right now. I just think it makes sense to pivot because, and don't get me wrong when I say this, Kings fans, but like, understand my point here. This is the 5th year from De'Aaron Fox playing in this mess. You get tired. You get tired of having the stink of the Kings on you. Like, no, but you do. Like, look, you if you're De'Aaron Fox, you hear it. You hear everything. Of course you hear it. Like, can he win? What's going on with the ownership? Why are they changing coaches as the rest of us change underwear? Like, what is going on here? There's no stability on the roster. There's no stability in the front office. There's no stability in ownership. Like, everything is just weird. So I think it might even behoove some team out there who's like, oh, De'Aaron Fox is available? And he might actually could be had for cheaper than he could last year? Sold, because we just need to get him to a good team with a proper structure where he can actually relish incompetence compared to what he's used to. I mean, that's how I'd look at it. But if I'm the Kings, I don't even presume to know what's going through their minds, because this is a team where ownership came in and said, should we play 4-on-5 basketball? Like, this is the team that we're talking about. I mean, would I want to trade De'Aaron Fox? No. Can I see why there's logic to doing it? Yeah, absolutely. Would I probably prefer doing it around the draft when I know where I land? I think so. Like, because then you can really make an educated guess on what your roster looks like next year. Overall, I'm open to moving everyone on this roster if I'm the Kings. Of course, with the caveat again that you get new coaching staff, new management in there, and that's not a knock on Monty McNair. I just think you need to start fresh, and you need to do so also with the understanding that the Vivek Ranadive does not interfere, which that's the first hurdle. And if you can't get past that, good luck, Kings fans. It's going to be a long decade. Yeah,
I mean, I agree with you that De'Aaron Fox should not be off limits. I'm not saying in a Ben Simmons trade necessarily, but like just in general, he's a really good player. There are very few players in the league who should be deemed completely off limits in any trade talks. I could probably list them on one hand. Like, it's Giannis, it's Luka, it's Steph, KD. That might be the list.
Wow, no LeBron.
He's 37.
No, I love it. I'm looking forward to. You had Kings fans on your ass the other day. Now it's going to be Lakers fans. It's all good.
Lakers fans they are having a bad time this year. Like, you think Kings fans are down bad? At least Kings fans like know what to expect or are used to this right now. Lakers fans, I've just never seen them so fatalistic before. But
yeah, that's true. That is true. By the way, do you think OKC would make an interesting trading partner for De'Aaron Fox? Because you would have like a Fox Shea backcourt.
What does OKC have to trade other than a ton of picks?
Yeah, that's the idea. That is under the assumption that the Kings decide, like let's blow it up, like let's just start all the way over.
Right. And I mean, they could offer Josh Giddey and some of the other young guys too.
That is true. Whatever like variety you find interesting, but just so there's the backcourt of Fox and Shea.
I think the difficulty is that again, based on what Sam Amick is saying, they don't want to do that. They don't want to rebuild. They want to compete for a playoff spot. Right. As you know, as nearsighted as that may be, like we have to just go with the word trickling out from, you know, Kings camp right now. So like if they do end up trading De'Aaron Fox, I think it would be more like a star for a star type deal,
right?
Than like De'Aaron Fox for like the James Harden, you know, a jillion draft picks and some like decent young guys.
No, but okay, you know what? Let's look at it through that framing that you just put in, that they want to win, right? Like they are right now, the Kings are where the Bulls were last year. Is that a fair assessment? Yeah. Okay, the Bulls gave up their young guys.
Yeah.
So that's Halliburton. That's Davion Mitchell.
Right.
That is sticking with De'Aaron Fox, Harrison Barnes, Buddy Hield, and Richaun Holmes. And then flipping your two high-priced point guards elsewhere for fit and veteran leadership. And
you have Marvin Bagley. Like, I don't care what, if they get the number 60th pick for Marvin Bagley, just flip him. You're not re-signing him. No one, like, everyone will call your bluff. Just get like
use him as a salary filler.
Right, exactly. Like, yeah. You can attach him with Halliburton and get a bigger salary back, or attach him with Davion Mitchell. But I mean, I hear you. Like, if the Kings are serious about wanting to do that, that is the right play. The one that stands out to me, and we're gonna get to this team shortly anyway, is De'Aaron Fox for Jaylen Brown.
You know how I feel about Jaylen Brown. I would not do it if I'm Boston.
It's interesting, though, no?
No.
Really?
Again, I'm looking at it from Boston's point of view. I wouldn't find that interesting. For the Kings, I would be very interested. That would be fun. You would be better. But then again, if you're making that deal, you still have to figure out what to do with the young guys. Like, who is the most established point guard on the Sacramento Kings? That's De'Aaron Fox, hands down. So if you flip him for Jaylen Brown, okay, cool. Then you're kind of creating another problem, because Halliburton and Mitchell, neither of those guys are fully primed to take in that role yet. Like, then I would rather flip those two guys for established players who, won't necessarily be Jaylen Brown, but complementary pieces, however you want to describe it. And that's probably a small forward. Like, who, I can't tell you, because like I haven't done like the trade machine exercise for 4 hours where I'm sitting there and going, okay, let's identify the perfect guy. Like, I don't know. But I mean, if you just start with Fox, Hield in the backcourt, Barnes at the 4, and Holmes at the 5, find one guy who can slot into the 3, and you have a pretty structured starting lineup at least. Yeah,
I mean, I think the problem is, like, that is just, you know, a two-way 3 is probably the most valued archetype in the league right now. So it's just really hard. Like, you can probably pry Robert Covington away from the Kings or from the Blazers, but like, I don't think that's changing the picture for you all that much. And I wouldn't give up Tyrese Halliburton for him. So like, I hear you on, like, if you do Fox for Brown and then you go to Halliburton as a full-time point guard, is he ready for that role already? Probably not. There's definitely going to be a learning curve there. But I don't know. I mean, I could see that being, and hell, the Kings can include more picks as well. And like, Boston of all teams knows what happened if you can get an unprotected first from the Kings, even a couple years down the road. Right. Like that might be worth gambling on. I don't know. I think
have a name. I have a name. Okay. It's not a two-way guy, and you're gonna say no, and I won't disagree with you necessarily. Okay. But this is a team that can't afford to say, well, we're not trading this guy because they're 3-16. What about Brandon Ingram?
That was the other guy that came to mind for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He can't be had for Halliburton and Mitchell and Marvin Bagley. Like, you would need, as you said, to attach several draft picks, unprotected no less. But like, now we're getting into something that's interesting. Like, let's say the Pelicans bite on this, and I don't think they do. Like, let's just make that a thing right off the top. Then you have Fox, Hield, Ingram, Barnes, and Holmes in the starting five. I mean, that's at least fun, right? And then you can round out the roster in the offseason using your, I don't know if they get over the tax. They don't, I think. So they should still have their non-tax MLE, I presume.
I have not done the math on 2022 at all. I can't imagine they'd be over. I don't know how.
No, because Holmes is on a freaking steal and Barnes is only 20 million. Yeah. No, they won't. They wouldn't. So they would have their non-tax MLE where they can get their Alex Caruso.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking like at just a list of, the best small forwards are going nowhere. Kevin Durant's going nowhere. Kawhi Leonard is going nowhere. Jimmy Butler's going nowhere. Like Tobias Harris, but he's not really even a small forward at this point.
Yeah, he's more of a 4 now.
Yeah, but the Sixers, I think, would be open to entertaining offers. Andrew Wiggins, Gordon Hayward, like OG Anunoby, I don't think is going anywhere.
No. But you know what? Like, they want to win, right?
The Kings?
How about you go for someone who, the Kings, but how about you go for someone who isn't necessarily a star, but who's just kind of a do-it-all guy who can really be your glue guy, like Kyle Anderson.
Now that'd be interesting, because Lord knows Memphis is willing to take steps back this year. Well, they are, but
I know
they're winning in spite of it.
Yeah, I mean, based on all their moves, I don't disagree. But no, I mean, at Kyle Anderson, I know he's not the answer, but I mean, you get someone in there who's like a 3-4, multi-positional defender who has become a much better shooter in recent years, who can play make, like who can do a little bit of everything. Like, yeah, he's not going to blow you away. He's not going to pop for 39, but like, that's a decent guy to bring into that rotation, and he's pretty cheap, all things considered. Yeah, no, that's a good shout. The one other one that came to mind, and this is like the home run swing that could just completely blow up in your face. But what if Denver is freaked out by what's going on with Michael Porter Jr.? And Sacramento is like, you know what? Okay, it's fine. We'll just do it. We'll take the gamble on his back. Yeah, on a contract that hasn't even kicked in yet, right? Right. I think it would be poison pill would apply. It'd be much easier to pull this off next offseason than it would right now. Right. Yeah, because that's when the contract is activated and then the poison pill is gone. Yeah. Oh, but could you imagine if he has this like perpetual back issue and is like only plays a couple games, like if he essentially becomes Grant Hill in Orlando, where he plays a couple games here or there, and then now he's out for 20, plays 5. Oh, now he's back out for 20 again. If you're the Kings, especially where they are right now, do you even dare take such a risk? No, I don't think they should. Right. I mean, this is where we have to suss out how desperate they get. Like, are they willing to take that type of a gamble? Because, again, most of these guys, it's either stars who are going nowhere, or it's young guys like Mikal Bridges, who also just signed an extension, is going nowhere. I'm sure they'd love to get Miles Bridges, but Charlotte's not going to give him up for cheap, or at all. No, they're probably going to max him. Yeah, or I mean, they're at least going to let him test restricted free agency and match presumably whatever he gets. Yeah. So then you're you can gamble on some young guys. Like maybe you call up Atlanta and go for a Cam Reddish or a DeAndre Hunter. But again, I don't know why. I don't think Atlanta. They are looking to consolidation trade. They're not looking to blow these guys up into multiple pieces as well. So all of this is to say, it's really difficult to say. I mean, we talked about what is the path forward for the Kings here.
it's difficult to see one unless they do consider some widespread changes. So we're going to talk a lot about guys who could be on the move either between now and the trade deadline or maybe next offseason, some star caliber players. I think De'Aaron Fox, even without Amick's report, I think the Walton firing and just where they are as a franchise, like, he is definitely a name to keep an eye on.